Duke fans, what is up? We are back. The Duke Blue Central podcast is back, making its grand return to begin our off-season episodes. It is an exciting time to be a Duke basketball fan, as it always is, an eventful time. But after a little bit of an extended break through the month of April, a little bit through May, we are back with the podcast. We're going to be continuing, picking up where we left off, recapping off-season stuff, continuing to put out episodes throughout the off-season in readied anticipation for next season at Cameron Indoor. Thank you guys so much for listening throughout this season, the first season of Duke Blue Central. It was an awesome time. Really grew the platform a little bit, grew the audience from the podcast and on my Twitter page over at Duke Blue Central. Thank you guys all for so much support, so much great feedback. Appreciate each and every one of you that listened throughout this season. Can't wait for hopefully many more episodes, including this one, which is the kickoff to our off-season episodes. I wanted to kind of wait to do this episode just for all the off-season dust to settle and to see what was going to happen with this team, because in case you've been hiding under a rock, next year's Duke team is going to look a heck of a lot different than this year's because of a mass exodus of players from this last year's squad that are no longer going to be on next year's team for a multitude of different reasons. So this episode, I'm going to be going over who's leaving, who's staying, and who is transferring in. And then I'll briefly go over the recruits coming in at the end, but I actually want to save really diving deep on the recruits for future episodes. I want to do kind of a deep dive on each player, see what we can expect from each freshman coming in. But this episode, I just wanted to give a brief recap of what's happened in the offseason. Well, I think it's good to start with who is graduating and going to the NBA draft. Those guys will be Kyle Filipowski, Spencer Hubbard, Ryan Young, and Jared McCain. Jared McCain and Flip are obviously leaving to go to the NBA. Ryan Young, Spencer Hubbard graduating, finishing out their Duke careers in a Duke jersey. Great careers for both of those guys, especially privileged to see Ryan Young play his last 2 years of college eligibility for us at Duke. It was an awesome time having him. And for Spencer, he's a hard worker behind the scenes, was able to get on scholarship this past year, and I'm sure he was just a great guy to have around the program, and so offered some really exciting moments on this team. Guys leaving for the NBA, Jared McCain, Kyle Filipowski. Flip, I think we all expected to be gone from the second he announced his return this year. Well-deserved leaving for Kyle Filipowski. What more can you ask for a guy who was going to be a first-round, potentially lottery pick last year, to come back? That's just not talked about enough. For as much a drama kind of surrounded, I don't even want to say drama, but for as much talk was around Flip's name this past year, I don't know if we'll ever really, appreciate him enough for coming back a second year when it would have been so easy to leave. Jared McCain, I think this one hurts a little because I do believe the plan going into his college career was for him to be a multi-year player at Duke, at least a 2-year player at Duke, and the kid just played so well this year, he earned himself a spot to leave. And sometimes when you recruit as good a quality a player as Duke does, you have to deal with the fact that some of these guys are going to leave earlier than the coaching staff and the fans expect them to. But Jared McCain, look, I mean, he has earned a spot. I think he's a borderline top 10 pick from what I'm saying. A lot of people are saying he's even going to he's probable to even get drafted even before Kyle Filipowski. Last mock draft I looked at had him at 11. Could easily see him jumping into the top 10 just with his shooting ability and how much of a need that is in today's NBA. Jared McCain impressed the crap out of everybody this year, and as much as I would have loved to seen him stick around, it's well deserved for him to leave. Go chase your dream of being in the NBA, because at the end of the day, Duke is a college program. We're really focused on developing players and getting them ready for the league, and Jared McCain is ready to play in the NBA. No problem with that whatsoever, although I would have loved to have seen him stick around. But yeah, so that recaps the guys that are just leaving for graduation or going to the league. Now, let's go over the massive list of guys that are transferring. This came as quite a stark difference to last year's offseason where Duke was the only Division I team to not have a transfer leave. Boy, did that tradition get broken this year. Let me just read off this list of transfers. So, transferring the program, leaving, no longer playing at Duke, is Jaden Shute, Jalen Blakes, Jeremy Roach, Sean Stewart, TJ Power, Christian Reeves, and Mark Mitchell. An incredible exodus. Let's see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 players transferring, 2 leaving for the draft. That's 9 guys right there, and that doesn't even count the guys that are graduating. But yeah, all of these guys are no longer going to be playing at Duke. They will finish their college careers elsewhere. I'll briefly kind of go over each one, what's happened to them, where they've committed, and what's next for them. So Jaden Shute is a guy, I think a lot of people were talking about him transferring even last year maybe, but I do think with the wings we have coming in next year, and even the shooting ability we had this year, kept him off the court, as well as some seemed to be off the court issues, whether injury or other issues, kind of under the rug stuff. It didn't look like there was a path for Jaden to get a ton of playing time even next year, just with what we've seen out of him thus far. The kid's a heck of a shooter. He did commit to Virginia Tech. We've faced some pretty good shooters there in the past, and I'm sure he'll show up for a game he plays against Duke. But the defensive liabilities I think didn't pave the way to have him getting a lot of time on the court, even on next year's squad. This is kind of an expected transfer. Hate to see guys leave, obviously. You know, when you see a guy commit to Duke, you want them to realize their full potential at Duke. But sometimes the facts is that just doesn't work out. And that's the case for a lot of these guys. I'll be saying the same thing for several of these dudes that are leaving. But sometimes it just doesn't work out. You get new guys coming in, you get guys that stay, and these guys want to go to a place where they can get experience to prepare them ultimately for the NBA, if that is their dream. And it didn't look like Jaden was going to be able to continue that here. So wish him the best. Again, he committed to Virginia Tech not all that many days ago, so we'll be seeing him around. Next guy, Jalen Blakes. Blakes is going to go as a grad transfer with, I believe, 1 more year of eligibility. I don't know if he could use a COVID year or not. 1 or 2 years of eligibility left to go finish his career elsewhere. Blake's, I'm sad to see him go. He did graduate as a Duke student. Always be remembered as a Blue Devil in my mind, at least. But look, let's be honest with ourselves here and just say that Blake's, I think, going to a lower level school could get a ton of playing time. We know how good he is at defense, and I think, you know, after spending some time at Duke and realizing, look, he's never going to be the starting guard at Duke, I think I'm fine with him going and especially after dedicating this amount of years at Duke and graduating. I'm okay with him going somewhere else to just to get a lot of playing time as his last year, or I guess 2 years if he has a COVID year in college. We're going to miss Jalen Blakes and all the fun moments he provided and all the sparks of energy he provided on the court. But I'll be rooting for him to go be great. Jeremy Roach transferred. This one really hurt, guys. And this one to me is still the one where it's like, it felt like there was a path for Jeremy Roach to stay at Duke his last year and continue playing college ball at Duke. But ultimately, him and the coaching staff, I'm sure, had input, decided it was best for his future career to transfer, and he committed to Baylor, who are going to be a heck of a team next year. They also got a commitment from Norchad Omier, the big man from Miami, so it's going to be weird seeing them on the court together after a lot of battles against Miami. But Roach, yeah, Jeremy Roach did decide to leave the program after 4 awesome years at Duke. Jeremy Roach has been subtly one of the most impactful Duke players, just in any career, and not because of championships or anything like that, but just because of being a guy who bridged the coaching program from K to Shire. No other Duke player, I think, can say they were as instrumental in that transition as he was. Just trusting trusting the decision to make Shire the coach and believing in that and being a part of the program when he could have left when Kay left, and I think everybody would have realized why he did it. Huge shout out to Jeremy Roach and all he did for this Duke team. It's going to be rough seeing him play for another school, man. I'm telling you, Jeremy Roach to me is as Duke as it gets. Just some great moments with him in tournament runs, in just getting us to a Final Four a couple of years ago. We don't make that without him. You know, his reputation for just clutch shooting and finishing at the rim, even though he's undersized, and then all of a sudden this past year, just a huge increase in his 3-point percentage. It's going to be a bummer to see Jeremy Roach play for another school. I wish it had worked out where he had just been able to go pro and not had to play for another college. I'm sure he kind of wishes that too. But rooting the best for Jeremy, unless Baylor plays Duke, and then I'll be not rooting for him. but Roach was an awesome player for Duke, and I think there's an argument to be made here that a primary reason he left, I believe, and look, I have no insight on this. I feel like I'm kind of reading the tea leaves a little bit. I think Duke wants to play Caleb Foster a lot next season. I think they see a lot of potential in him to really take his game to the next level after this season, and he can only do that with the space for a lot of playing time. And I think, because we'll talk about it later, but Tyrese Proctor and Caleb Foster are back. Pretty much like the only two guys that are back, like key rotation guys. But with both of them coming back, and if Roach were to come back, I just think that's a lot of time that they're not going to be able to develop Foster into the player that they know he can be. Look, Caleb Foster was an incredibly high-rated recruit. He was right there along with Jared McCain in his standings in the recruit rankings. He is an amazing player. I think we're going to see a huge increase in talent and ability and just knowledge for the game next year in Caleb Foster. And he put together like a subtly really good freshman year with the opportunity that he had. Of course, his year was cut short with an injury at Wake Forest. Who knows what happens at the end of the season if he's able to play, if he's able to be in the tournament with us. You never know, but I'm very excited for Caleb Foster's next year. Really excited he chose to come back. Look, I mean, any of these guys could have transferred. It's not ridiculous to think about either Proctor or Foster also leaving. But the runway is there for both of them to get a lot of playing time. And I wonder if the Duke coaches just said, hey, look, man, to Jeremy, he's played here for 4 years, given Duke his all, maximum effort. Nobody's doubting that. I wonder if there was a little bit of advice of like, hey, maybe it's best for you to go somewhere where you're going to be the primary point guard, ball handler, and just show out, try to get into the NBA. Because there's another factor of this too where I haven't looked too deeply into Baylor's roster, but I'm sure they didn't recruit Roach just to be a rotation player. I think he'll be one of the main guys. But I think if Jeremy has a shot of trying to impress NBA scouts next season, it's with his point guard ability. And at Duke, Proctor has, he's got the keys to the offense in my mind. He did at the end 2 years ago, this past year, and then this upcoming year. He is going to be the primary point guard facilitating for the offense. And I think Jeremy having the opportunity to do that somewhere else would be a chance for him to get into the league, because I don't think necessarily his driving to the rim is going to get him to the league. There are a lot bigger guys in the NBA, and Jeremy Roach is not that big of a guy. But I think he has a chance if he can show he can be the primary facilitator on a good team and continue to shoot the three well. So that's going to be a good opportunity for him, and I think a big decision from this Duke staff. I think some of these guys transferring definitely was like them just wanting to leave, and I think some of them were maybe I'll call assisted transfers, where the coaching staff had difficult conversations and said, look, you're not going to be guaranteed this amount of playing time just because you were this past year. We got guys coming in and making the tough decision that maybe it is better for their personal development to go elsewhere. And I know that could be a really tough conversation for guys you've recruited for several years in high school. But I think some of that has happened, and I wonder if that's the case with Jeremy, just being like, just go ball out 1 year at Baylor and try to make it to the league. But anyway, moving on. The next guy, Sean Stewart, another one that hurt kind of, and it felt like Sean Stewart had a path to some playing time next year, especially after the transfer of Mark Mitchell. Mark Mitchell was the first person to declare he was going to transfer, and after that, a lot of the Duke fans were saying this is a sure sign Sean is going to stay. He'll have a path to playing time. He'll have a path to being either like the sixth man or maybe even starting on this next year's team. But that obviously was not the case. Sean decided to transfer and is committed to Ohio State, going to play in the Big Ten. I'll be rooting for Sean. This is another interesting one where I felt like, Sean got enough playing time this year to lead you to believe he would have got playing time next year. This is the one I don't have a big handle on, like, was this the coaching staff saying, hey, look, all these freshmen are coming in and they're going to take your time? Or was Sean reading into that, like, hey, we've got 6 5-stars coming in. I don't know what's going to happen with my time. Or was it just a fit thing where he feels like he'll fit somewhere else? I know Sean grew up a Duke fan, so it's a shame that he felt like he needed to leave. But yeah, that ultimately was the decision, and we'll see how that pans out. I think, and we'll talk about the transfers in a second. I think all of the transfers we brought in, a couple of them are Sean Stewart-ish type guys that are just frankly more advanced. We'll talk about Malik Brown from Syracuse here in a bit, but Malik Brown does a lot of the same things that Sean Stewart does, just at a higher level, at least for next season. Now, if we're talking about 3 seasons down the line, where is Sean Stewart's ceiling going to be? I don't know, but the fact is, I think Duke, the coaching staff has recognized that this next season's recruiting class is a special one. People are talking about it maybe being the best recruiting class ever, and they need to get guys now that are going to play at their peak along with these freshmen and give them some more experience. So that could have been part of the decision, but nevertheless, Sean decided to take his talents elsewhere and will be playing for Ohio State. Well, I'm really going to be interested to see, in 3 years, if Sean's a senior and is having a great career, are we going to regret maybe, and I don't know, maybe it didn't go down like this and he didn't want to leave, but if it was this case where, we were deciding between getting Malik Brown from Syracuse or Sean Stewart, if in a couple years' time Sean Stewart's really good, I wonder if we'll regret that decision. And Malik Brown has 2 years left too, so it's not like he's like a super senior or anything. But yeah, Sean decided to head out. Wish him nothing but the best. He'll be fun to watch. He just couldn't. He had obviously the athletic potential, but I don't think he maybe played with enough consistency or just didn't have a handle on some things to see more playing time than he did. He was kind of foul happy, could turn the ball over easy, and his offensive game, other than the alley-oops and lobs and things like that, left something to be desired. Not that he can't develop those. I absolutely think that he will, and I'm rooting for him to do that. But I think that did hold him back from seeing more of the court this year, and I think ultimately that probably led to him leaving the program because he didn't see a lot of time this year. We'll move on to the next guy. TJ Power is the next person we're going to talk about, also deciding to leave the program. By the way, if you're keeping track, that's all of the freshmen other than Caleb Foster. We had 4 freshmen come into this year. We had TJ Power, Sean Stewart, Caleb Foster, and Jared McCain. Caleb Foster is the only one that will be in a Duke jersey next year. Jared McCain go to the draft. TJ Power also deciding to leave. Committed to Virginia, another in-conference transfer, so we'll get to see TJ again, probably several more times. This one's a bummer. I can see why TJ made this decision more than some of the other guys. We have a lot of wing guys coming in next season, and a lot of wing guys who could shoot and who are more athletic than him, and are slated to get a lot of playing time. So I can see it from his perspective of like, hey, I need to go somewhere I'm going to play, because next year's Duke team is going to be talent filled. And if you're not able to hang with that talent, you're just not going to see the floor. Not that I don't think TJ could have. I liked a lot of what he brought to this team. His shooting ability was obvious. Defensively, he showed flashes of being okay. But I don't know if – I wonder if he would have competed with some of the freshmen that we have coming in. And he feels like a Virginia kind of player, shooter. I don't know how he's going to play defense in that scheme. We'll have to see what Tony Bennett can do with him. But we wish TJ nothing but the best. I can see why – again, I can see why TJ maybe thought, and the coaching staff perhaps, thought it was a good idea to transfer with all of the guys similar to his size and ability coming in next year, whether from transfer or freshman. It makes sense he's maybe going to greener pastures where he can see the court a little bit more. Next guy we're going to talk about, Christian Reeves. Christian Reeves announced recently he's transferring to Clemson. So yet again, another in-conference ACC transfer. So we'll get to play against C. Reeves. I think Christian Reeves is one that a lot of guys saw coming. When he committed, he was a 4-star recruit that was a Duke fan, a believer, and signed on to kind of be a project player. But I don't think that project advanced quick enough or as much as the coaching staff and he wanted to get him on the floor. I think there was a world where he can back up big men of next year's team and get more playing time. But I don't know if he saw the light as to to getting a ton of playing time. Certainly not as many as he's going to get at Clemson. And I think we kind of saw the writing on the wall with this. He's also coming off a season-long injury, which is a bummer for him. But for his size and just how he looks on the court, he never really, I don't know, he doesn't do some things as well as you would expect a guy his size to do. I never thought he was that great of a rebounder of the basketball. He was a little slow. Maybe the hustle wasn't all there all the times. I don't mean to rag on the guy. I don't root against any particular player. I'm just trying to give honest analysis here. And I think it was apparent in some games that Duke wanted to play a little quick, and I don't think that was happening with Christian Reeves, and I don't think his defense was where it needed to be. I think could kind of just be a big body in the paint at times on offense and defense, and I think it'll probably be best for him to try and achieve greatness elsewhere. Once again, be rooting for all these guys. Anybody who commits to Duke, I want to show respect, and it takes a lot to be a basketball player at Duke for however many years you are there. So respect to C. Reeves, but we'll get to see him more at Clemson, and again, we'll be rooting for him as long as he's not playing Duke. Also, it's worth mentioning, Christian Reeves, that countdown to craziness was always a fun thing to watch. That was like his moment every year. I don't know what happened in Countdown, but he was like the star of the offense and defense every year at Countdown. So I'll miss that next year's Countdown. And the last transfer we're going to talk about, Mark Mitchell. Mark is a guy you began to hear whispers of transfers status toward the end of the year, where you look back on Mark's year and perhaps he did not have the improvement that a lot of people thought he was going to have his sophomore season. His three-point shooting was, and again, respect to Mark, like Mark, root for Mark, but his three-point shooting was abysmal this year. It decreased from the previous year. He shot 35% from three his first year, went down to 27%. Free throw percentage also went from 76 to 62. He did average more rebounds, slightly more blocks and steals, basically negligible, and went from 9 to 11 points a game. But I don't think that is the year that we all thought we were getting from Mark Mitchell. And I think, again, you've heard me say this before, we've got a lot of guys coming in next year that are big wing players, like Mark really is. And I know Mark plays the 4 some and things like that, but a lot of guys that would fight. We have a ton of guys by transfer and by recruit who are going to fight him for minutes. And I think that this year not going that well may have been an indicator to him that's like, hey, maybe this system isn't for me. Maybe I need to go somewhere else. He recently committed to Mizzou. At least he's going to the SEC. Shout out to all these transfers that aren't going to the ACC. So respect to them. But I wish Mark the best. And I think this is probably best potentially for both parties. I don't know if the fit was going to be there for Mark on next year's team. Loosely, you talk about with freshmen coming in, Cooper Flag is obviously going to start. I think Common Malawach is definitely going to start at center for us, if not immediately, eventual. That leaves kind of the 5, and I think the goal is for Cooper to play the 3. That would leave Mark at the 4 again for this season, which he was able to play this season a lot, and I don't think it worked out as well as we had all hoped. So I didn't really see the fit for Mark on next year's team, especially a team that I think, again, is going to want to play pretty fast. Defensively, he would have fit this team. But with the role he's looking for, I don't know if he would have fit. Because in contrast, just here, let's transition to this. Wish Mark all the best, obviously, but this leads me well into the first transfer I want to talk about, which is Malik Brown, which I think to me is kind of like the hybrid Mark Mitchell, Sean Stewart replacement player. Malik Brown was a good player at Syracuse last season. He was a sophomore last year, averaged 9 points, 7 rebounds, almost 2 assists while shooting almost 70% from the field. High efficiency guy, a lot of finishes near the basket, and incredible defensive player. I'm blanking on this, but he was ACC All Defense, I believe. So first team All Defense, I believe so. But Malik had a really good moments. In fact, against Duke, he had an amazing game at Cameron when Syracuse came to Duke. When Syracuse came to Duke, he finished with, I believe, a season high 26 points. Incredible game from him. Shot 11 for 16. Also finished with 7 rebounds. So it's a guy who played well at Cameron. I think he was like pretty much the only player who played well for Syracuse. But he, to me, is the guy that is set up really well to replace what we lost in Mark Mitchell and Sean Stewart. I think if we could get Mark to accept a role, he could potentially do this. But Malik knows what he does, and he knows what he does well, and he does it well. He gets after it on the boards, is an elite rebounder. He is an elite defender that can defend a ton of different positions, very versatile. He's 6'8", 222 pounds, a big guy that can switch to guard guys on the outside, can guard big men on the inside, and he knows that on the offensive side of the court, he's not going to be the ball handler that's going up and getting you a bucket. He's going to be in the dunker spot. He's going to be cleaning up the glass with offensive rebounds, and he's fine with that. And I think that he embraces that mentality of being a tough, rebounding, defensive guy. And I think that's going to be amazing for Duke to have. I think he's going to start on next year's team. As of right now, I think Malawach will start at the 5, Brown will be the 4, and I think they want to play Cooper at the 3, which will make for one heck of a 3-man defensive lineup. But he will, I think, thrive in that role next year because I think Duke will have the talent and the scoring options, or at least hopefully eventually. I do think Duke will have the talent to score a bunch. He'll be able to stay in that dunker spot, get easy buckets, and just be that guy, hard-nosed defender, athletic rebounder. I'm really excited about him. And I think the thing with Mark and Sean is that I think they had in their minds bigger roles. I think they have both are, 5-star recruits, dream of the NBA. It's going to be harder for them to accept a role as a tough-nosed defensive rebounding guy. Malik Brown is already that and has done that at a high level. So really excited to see what he can do on this next year's Duke team. And when you're looking at transfers, one thing is important to say. Like it as much as everybody likes the flashy transfers, like the Hunter Dickinsons and things like that, almost just important when you're looking at transfers is how do they fit next year's team? And that's especially true with Duke, who gets loaded freshmen pretty much every year. So like with us, for example, I know a lot of people wanted that Kobe Bray kid from Dayton, and I thought it was a great option at one point. But the fact is, like, he averaged, I think, over 14 points a game last season at Dayton. He's not looking, especially when UConn, Kentucky, Kansas, Duke, North Carolina are all interested in him, he's not looking to go somewhere to sit behind a developing young player. He's looking to go somewhere to play as many minutes immediately to really showcase his talent on the highest level to get into the league. The thing with all of these Duke transfers that we brought in is these are guys that are experienced, know their role, know what they're good at, and that role fits into the scheme and to the lineups of next year's team, which I think is something, might have got critiqued this year, is people not knowing their role or playing slightly out of position and things like that. I think that's not going to happen at all next year. I think everybody's role is really established. The freshman's role is always interesting to figure out because you never know who's really going to perform well or not. So that's something that developed. But as for the returning guys and the transfers, I think all of them are very established. Tyrese Proctor, you are the primary point guard. Caleb Foster, you're going to be the starting two probably. And you and the other guards are going to go crazy. Caleb Foster is going to be relied upon to score a lot next year. That's an established role. All the freshmen, the big ones, Common, you're the starting five. You're going to anchor our defense from the center position, and you're going to score, lob threat, even maybe get outside some and do some of the crazy things that you do. Cooper, the leader of next year's team. He's talented everywhere. Lead the team defensively, lead them in energy. All of these guys have established roles. Same thing. Malik Brown, you're probably going to be the starting four. We want you to go out there and play tough defense and rebound the heck out of the ball, and we know that he can do that, and I think he will do that. Very excited to see his fit. And just for a minute, think about, like, Cooper Flagg is maybe the best, like, defensive high school prospect in, like, generations, especially in the position he plays. There is no better shot blocking small forward like in high school basketball history than Cooper Flagg. So he's going to play the three potentially. Then we have Malik Brown, transfer from Syracuse, who I just talked about having great defensive stats, an all-ACC defender who's done it for 2 years, and is athletic, great at getting boards on the offensive and defensive glass. Okay, just that alone would be a great front court. On top of that, you're getting a freshman in Malwatch that is a 7'2" guy who blocks everything and is obviously going to have a size advantage on pretty much every center he plays in college basketball. Oh, and by the way, all of those guys are 6'8" or above. I think Cooper Flagg's 6'8", 6'9", Malik Brown 6'8", Malwatch is 7'2". You're talking about that. You're talking about a 7'2" guy, a 6'8" dude, and a 6'8", 6'9" guy. Back there, gosh, I mean, tough to score. Talk about it being tough to score on. And Brown and Flagg, I think, are easily going to be able to switch on smaller defenders. Especially Brown has done it for seasons. He's guarded smaller guys his whole college career and has succeeded in it. So he's a really exciting guy for Duke to get on this team. He's also shown the ability to score. I mean, heck, what I just say, he had 26 at Cameron. So he can be a guy every now and again. But great pickup for Duke in the portal, Malik Brown. Next guy I want to talk about, Mason Gillis, another forward from Purdue, who's going to be a super senior going into next season. Everybody talks about Duke wanting to get old, Duke wanting to get more experience. Mason Gillis brings us that. Now, he was not a marquee part of the offense at Purdue, but it's obvious what he brings to the team. I think he is a pretty prototypical 3-and-D guy. He plays really good defense, and his three-point numbers are awesome, just awesome. Last season, he shot almost 47% from three. that's pretty much as good as you can hope for, especially for a Ford. He is recruited to this team again, established role. He's going to come off the bench. He's going to play good, tough defense. He's not going to be asked to do too much on offense, but knock down the catch and shoot threes, which I think he will have plenty of. Because just in thinking about this next year's team, I don't think we'll be as strong. We won't be as strong of an outside shooting team as we were this year. In fact, I think if there is a weakness to next year's team, it could be that. But what we won't be lacking is interior strength and driving ability, because we got some dudes who are going to put the ball on the deck. And so I think having a guy like Gillis who can keep defenses honest out there from three, it's really important that he hits his shots. But having him who can shoot the three at such a high clip, I think teams defensively, Duke, for next year are just going to pack up the lane and try not to let him score inside, which will lead to him getting a lot of open three-point opportunities, I think. So, important for him to hit the three, but I think he's recruited to do exactly that. I think he kind of fixes a lot of or some of the problems. Like if you're an opposing coach thinking about how you're going to defend Duke, I think having a guy like that who's a 47% three-point shooter, that's going to cause a lot of problems for coaches when they look at that on the court alongside the likes of guys like Cooper, Flagg, and Malach. So excited to see what he can do. And another thing, again, he just brings that experience. He's fresh off of a national championship game playing for Purdue. He had a good game in the Final Four. I think he scored 8 points in the Final Four game, which was good for a player coming off the bench like that in such a high moment. Excited for his shooting ability, his defense. And by the way, it's clear that Jon Scheyer is really going all in on the defense next year's team. Again, like I said, Cooper, Flagg, maybe the thing guys talk most about him is his defensive ability. He's gotten like triple doubles with blocks in his high school career, and Scheyer has built around that. Everybody he's brought in has really, really gets after it defensively. And that leads me perfectly into the next guy I want to talk about, which is Sion James. Maybe, and I wouldn't have said this before, especially when it leaked that we were going after Brown and Gillis, the conversation was, which one would you rather? And that was tough. And then we ended up getting both, which is amazing. But subtly, the transfer I'm most excited about is this kid, Sion James. He is a guard for Tulane. Physical stats, right? Point guard for Tulane. He's 6'6", 220 pounds. That is almost the same size as Malik Brown, who is probably going to be our starting power forward. Just as a quick sport, this Duke team is going to be huge next year. Like I don't think there's any rotational guy that will be under 6'5". I think Caleb Foster will be the shortest player on this team, and he's a 6'5" guard. But Sion James averaged 14 points, 5 rebounds, almost 3 assists a game last year for Tulane while shooting 51% from the field. And I really encourage you to look this kid up. He has improved every year. Again, he will be a super senior. He's played 4 years of college at Tulane. Has had good success there, has improved every year. Freshman, for reading his point totals, he went from 5.8 points to 7.4 to 9.7 to 14 in successive years with increasing levels of increasing role. The one knock on him, I think, from his 3 early years was that he couldn't shoot the ball outside from very well. Well, he fixed that last year, and he shot 38%, which is for a guy that gets to the rack as much as him. 38% is absolutely going to be good enough. This guy's specialty is a driver, a slasher. He's built like a tank, can play through contact. Also an underrated facilitator. I mean, he, again, averaging almost 3 assists a game. I just go watch highlights of this kid and try not to be excited for the potential of how he's going to be on next year's team. I think there's absolutely a potential he can start. Like, I think him and Caleb Foster will kind of be battling for that 2-guard position. Tulane also used him as a incredibly versatile defender. He guarded positions 1 through 5 even against smaller teams, but he can easily guard 1 through 3, 1 through 4, being 220 pounds and being 6'6". And again, I think you can read into the tea leaves a little here and know that Shire is really going after switchable guys on defense. When you look at all these transfers, the Malik Browns, Mason Gillis, and Sion James, all of these guys can switch to guard multiple positions. And we know that Caleb Foster and Tyrese Proctor, they can switch, guard multiple positions. We know Cooper Flagg is going to be able to switch and guard multiple positions. Malawach is maybe the guy you don't want to bring out to the perimeter, but that's in a center, you can deal with that. He can stay in the paint, and the other guys can cover. And I think Sion has the potential to be a really underrated get for this year's Duke team. If he can have a season like he's had at Tulane, and I know the competition's different, but he put up some really good games against good competition. Tulane had their first win against a top 10 opponent, I think, ever this season when they won. They beat Memphis, who was ranked 10 at the time, at home, and Sion was the leader of that game. He scored 22 points, had six assists, and 7 rebounds. Great splits. 6 for 12 from the field. I mean, he went 4 for 8 from 3. This is a kid that in the biggest moment of the year so far for Tulane, he had this game. And then again, in the conference championship second round, where Tulane was eliminated by North Texas, he had 28 points and 10 rebounds, 2 blocks, 1 steal. He shot 3 for 4 from 3. This is a kid that is shown to really show up in big moments, and I really am maybe the most excited to see him in a Duke jersey next year. I think, and everywhere you look, coaches talk about his intangibles, how good of a leader he is. He will be a super senior guard, which we know how valuable that is in March, especially, Tyrese Proctor is now a junior. When we're going into the tournament next year, we'll be talking about having 2 guards that have plenty of experience. It's not just Roach anymore. We'll have Tyrese Proctor, who is a junior, played in the tournament 2 years consecutively, and we'll have Sion James, who will be a 5th-year senior as 2, and then Caleb Foster will be a sophomore. He'll be the least experienced, but that's 2 key pieces of your rotation that are going to be really experienced. And Sion, again, underrated playmaker. Really can pass the ball well, can facilitate. I would have no problem with him backing. The thing that's good about him, he can back up Proctor and Foster. He can slot into a 2-guard spot and run around. He has great off-ball movement, can get open, and can slash and be a primary scorer for you. But he can also take the keys to the offense, let Proctor sit down while Foster is out there running too. And can facilitate for the team and can make great passes, can find his teammates in good positions. Sion James, I'm not seeing a lot that I'm not excited about from this kid. He is going to be a fun player to watch. Also has some electric dunks. I saw a crazy stat from him the other day. I wish I remembered to pull it up, but it was comparing how many times he got to the basket compared to how many times Proctor and Jeremy Roach got to the basket combined this season. And Sion James got to the basket more than both of them combined did. So he is not a player that plays from the outside. He is looking to get inside and will use his outside game to keep the defense honest. Again, he shot 38% from 3 this season. But this is a slasher that's looking to get to the rim and either make good passes to open teammates or take it up with authority and finish through contact. So, a lot to look forward to in these 3 transfers. I think all of them will get playing time and will be key pieces in this Duke team. Now, I'm going to briefly read off the freshmen coming in. Again, 6 5-star recruits. I'll read it in order from least star valued to most. So, Darren Harris, Patrick Ngongba, Con Canupple, Isaiah Evans, Common Malawach, and of course the prize of the class, Cooper Flagg. 6 5-star recruits coming in. Just incredible recruiting class. I think Darren Harris is bordering on a 4 on some sites, but this is going to be an incredible recruiting class to watch. I don't want to get into it too much, but I just wanted to keep that in the back of your head as you listen to kind of the sadness of the guys transferring. We have almost a big of list of guys coming to this Duke. In fact, we do, because we have 6 recruits coming in, 3 transfers coming in, and we had 9 guys leaving either by transfer or draft. So we are fulfilling that 9 guys coming back with transfers incoming and freshmen incoming. So it's not like we have a lack of talent. The team is just going to look a heck of a lot different next year than it was this past year. And look, that honestly, that could be a good team. We were an Elite 8 team last year, which was awesome, but I do think this Duke team had some problems that a lot of these transfers and recruits will fix. So it'll be really exciting to see that. But yeah, that's going to do it. I've talked enough for this episode. So happy to be back. We're not just going to drop off again and take a huge break. We're going to be back soon. I want to do some deep dive episodes on each of these guys coming in next year and really talk about what they're going to give to this Duke team. I think that'll be some good off-season content for you guys. And, of course, we'll be back if any news breaks. I do think Duke has the potential to pick up one transfer big, like a experienced transfer big, but probably there's not a guy out there who's going to get a ton of playing time. It'll probably be more of a practice player. I'm pretty sure the roster is set for next year's team. But yeah, thank you so much for listening, everybody. It is going to be an exciting offseason for Duke. I can't wait to give you more breakdowns and just feedback of what's going on in the Duke basketball world. Thank you guys so much again for listening and just the awesome growth the podcast experienced this past season. It was just a blast getting on here and just chopping it up with all you Duke fans and all the awesome Duke fans on Twitter too, which, by the way, if you don't follow me on Twitter, go to Duke Blue Central online, interact with me there. Love seeing your opinions and stuff like that. But yeah, we are back. Duke Blue Central is back. Thanks for letting me take a break. But I can't wait to come back with some more episodes for you guys. It's been great. Go Blue Devils.